Okay, we are ready to roll. So let me talk about a ground reality. All of you guys in the room have a big vision, so do we. We have to go to zero trust. Agree? When we talk to customers, however, we come to some basic stumbling blocks. How do I make my .1x reliable? How do I make my MAC auth bypass not break every time I add a device to my network? We were just talking to a customer in the previous session. How do I not make client onboarding for BYOD devices a project for 6 months, right? So before we talk about architecture and frameworks for all the solutions and offerings, a quick pulse check. How many of you are Aruba ClearPass customers? That's a good 70%, I would say. How many of you have some form of NAC? Okay. Any missed access assurance customers? A handful of you, friends, Slava will appreciate. Okay. So, you know, NAC has actually never failed on intent. What it has failed on is complexity. And at HPE Networking, our vision is to basically simplify NAC and give you compelling offerings. Every time a new device type enters your estate, every time you have to think about different policy constructs, you bring in a lot of complexity, and that has been that has made NAC one of the most avoidable projects that no one wants to touch. However, our goal is to basically give you a zero-touch path to zero trust, right? And I have two great thought leaders over here. Samuel Perez leads ClearPass and the central NAC vision. There is a lot of depth and a lot of enterprise controls, a rich policy framework in ClearPass. Many of you have experienced. Samuel has a charter and a vision to take all of that and modernize, simplify, make it cloud available, make it on-prem available. And then on the other hand, we have Slava Dementiev. Some of you know Slava. He leads the charter for missed access assurance. And both of these friends of mine have one common vision. This is basically to give you a simple NAC offering that you can turn up on day 0 and not make it a project for years, and then have the operations continue with AI-driven automation, with simplified visibility, and everything that is to follow. So without much ado, I'll let Samuel Perez take it away.
Thank you. No, I have my own mic. Thanks, thanks, Anjoy. Well, I think a few of you, definitely some of you know me. I started with Aruba in 2013, and one of the reasons they hired me was because I actually thought ClearPass was easy. That I came from something that was a lot more complex. So I've been doing NAC for a number of years, been as an SC, then I was doing other things, and now as a product manager, I'm back to NAC and Universal ZTNA. So the premise is what Sanjoy was saying, that we want to implement zero trust-based policies into in how we access the network. By the way, this is the marketing approved slide. The one I prefer has R2D2 and plugging itself into a port in the Death Star and accessing all the maps and everything. Apparently, we don't have the rights to show that type of imagery. But yeah, so we're not going to get sued by Disney. The whole concept of applying zero trust to your network access is, let's just make sure we know what is coming in. Because whatever is coming in, we'll be able to talk to other things, to other assets, and has the potential of harming me. Okay, so we're going to be looking at controlling what comes into the network. We're also going to be constantly monitoring what is into the network and, of course, changing the degree of access, right? As I was mentioning, enforcement is the first thing that we will do. do a MAC authentication, you do a .1x authentication, you get a VLAN, you get a role, you get unlimited access into the network, then we monitor it, we're gonna do further authentication. Hopefully we're gonna give you role-based access and very narrow least privileged access. We're gonna continuously monitor it, and then we're gonna adjust it and give you a narrower role or give you more access, whatever it needs to be, right? In our case, we have two ways of doing NAC. We have, and we've had for a number of years, we have ClearPass. ClearPass is probably the most feature-rich, most complete NAC solution in the industry. Been around since 2012. I'm very kind of nervous presenting because Madani's sitting there and he was leading ClearPass for so many years that now I'm a little bit scared. But I hope I don't get fired. So we'll see, huh? Thanks for the reassurance, boss. So the integration with 150 plus partners, it can work with any network. It can work with like any customer environment. Of course, it was born on premises. You can deploy it in your VPC, of course, but it is very much an on-premises NAC. And it is not as hard as other NAC solutions, but there's a certain learning curve to it. We keep updating ClearPass. We keep adding new capabilities to ClearPass. You will see in 6.14, I'm not sure if it's going to be 6.13 or 6.14 because some people are afraid of the number 13, but we will have 6.13 delivered in more or less towards the middle of next year. It will come with new features. It'll come with a lot of focus on PQC compliance and TLS 1.3 and all those things. So ClearPass is going to stay around, and we're going to keep improving it. We're going to keep adding to it. Now we have another flavor, these cloud NAC solutions. I'm saying cloud NAC, not central NAC, because I'm going to be talking about central NAC, and Slava is going to be talking about access assurance. They're both cloud delivered solutions. One is built inside Central, the other one is built inside Mist. You will see throughout the session that they're very similar. They're definitely equivalent in their intent, of course. The details, the look and feel, what nuance here and there may differ a little bit, but the intent is to do what we could do with ClearPass with a good amount of knowledge and training, with not as much knowledge and training, with a kind of an easier on-ramp and delivered as a service. So I can go and do this NAC project to deliver zero trust to accessing the network in a large corporation, or I can do it in a school, I can do it in a store, I can do it in a small environment, right? Essentially giving everyone the opportunity to implement NAC within their network. I mentioned that we keep improving ClearPass. One of the things we keep making better is the profiling capabilities. In Central, we are receiving lots of telemetry from all the devices. We're receiving application visibility, DHCP fingerprints, we're receiving Mac OUI, we're receiving the HCP user agents. We use all that information to classify and profile your devices. And as we get more clients, as we get better telemetry from the devices, profiling gets more accurate. A year ago, Central would tell me, and Central would give that information to ClearPass. Central would tell me that I was connected with an iPhone or with an Android phone or with a Google Pixel. Now it's telling me it's an iPhone 15, that it's a MacBook with an M3 chipset, right? It is getting more and more accurate in how it classifies the device, more and more precise, because it is looking at lots of telemetry. It's also leveraging all the AI ML capabilities we have in the cloud to be more and more precise. In fact, with what used to be called New Central, now it's just called Central, we are using like an LLM to continuously train our client insights AI on new fingerprints, new ways to detect new devices, and so on, right? So your ClearPass or Central NAC, and very soon Access Assurance is going to get this technology as you were kind of getting a read on in this morning's keynote. Your client profiling is getting more precise, more robust every day. Okay. Why do we want that? Because all the policy we're going to build is, whatever we do in NAC is about getting a tighter, more complete context around the user, around the device. I want to know that it's a phone, or it's a computer, or it's a smartwatch, or it's a thermostat, or whatever it is. In some cases, it's managed by the company, and maybe I have information that I can receive from Intune or from Ivanti or whatever it is. I can, of course, learn about the user that is holding the device in some cases, or the user that is sponsoring the device in some other cases, right? Is that clear, the difference between user sponsoring the device and user holding the device? Because both in the case of, in all the 3 NAC solutions, or all the 3 NAC products that I'm talking about, we have the ability to generate these MPSKs. And a user can create a passcode that then goes and that then you can put on your Xbox, or you can put on a printer, or whatever it is. It's not, I'm not holding the Xbox, but as a user, I'm sponsoring it into the network. It'll get whatever rights it needs to have based on the whole context, including the fact that I was the one bringing the Xbox into the network, right? Of course, there's where the device is, if it's in the dorms, if it's in the common area, if it's in an office, if it's in someone's, it's in a meeting room, whatever it is, right? It's all about the context. We want to make the policy as rich as possible based on what you do, who you are, and kind of how you're doing in general. Now, Slava is going to complete a little bit more on Cloud NAC, and then we'll show you each one in particular. Go ahead.
Thank you, Samuel. All right. Greetings, everyone. I think the first slide that I will show, and the topic I want to talk about, is why Cloud NAC. In fact, this is all Samuel's slides, but when I looked at them, I said, it's the exact same thought we had back when we introduced access assurance in 2023, right? So why companies and why customers are trying to move their NAC services to the cloud? It's really all about reducing operating expenses. It's really about trying to reduce the complexity associated with deploying and maintaining and managing on-prem NAC solutions. Yes, on-prem NAC solutions can be extremely powerful, as you probably all know, but they can get really difficult to get started for smaller companies, or they can get a little bit difficult to deploy and manage when you're looking at extreme, like large-scale type deployments. And with everything going into the as-a-service shift, offering cloud-based SaaS products only makes sense. Right, so for us, really, the thought process is that everyone deserves NAC security capabilities regardless of the size of the company. Anybody could just really enroll and enforce NAC at the entire organization in a couple of minutes or in a couple of hours, not weeks and months and years. Now, let's talk about how do cloud NAC solutions work. And in fact, again, it's the same slide that depicts how cloud NAC solutions work for both access assurance and central NAC. It's identical, right? So you could see in a lot of cases, the philosophy, the thought process is very similar on both sides. So for all of the HPE networking that is directly managed by either Central or Mist, they will communicate to the cloud NAC service over a RATSEC, which is a TLS encrypted tunnel. So all of your authentication requests, as they go to the public cloud, they're always encrypted. And for all of the third-party devices, which are not directly managed by either Central or Mist, they would talk to an HPE networking gateway, or in case of Mist, that's going to be a Mist Edge. The only thing that the gateway is doing is actually taking reduce traffic in. It converts it into the RATSEC, so it acts as a proxy and sends it to the cloud for authentication. From there, Cloud NAC engine would enforce policies. It would do all of the integrations with your identity providers, with your MDMs, EDRs, et cetera, et cetera. So this is where the heavy lifting is going to take place. Okay, now with some introduction to Cloud NACs, let's actually spend some time on the access assurance side. And I'll show this one slide. Since access assurance has been out since late 2023, so this is when we launched it, I want to kind of demonstrate on where we are. It's been 2 years, a little bit over 2 years, so how did we do? Right? So if you look at this, just in 2025, we've had over 1,200 net new access assurance customers. That's the growth that we're seeing. It's really 100% year-over-year growth for access assurance in terms of number of new customers. Every month, there are new features, new security updates to the access assurance service that is done at runtime. It does not put the service down. That's one of the beauties of having a SaaS-based NAC solution. You always get new features. You don't have to do a project to upgrade your NAC to get them. And one of the main testaments really is all our deployments and all our customers that adopted the technology. And I would just focus on a couple of them. Really, in all verticals, we are seeing this adoption, and even in the areas where we never thought it would pick up that quickly. For example, the largest healthcare provider in the world is using access assurance today. We're looking at really 2 million unique clients daily. 2 million clients authenticating against a cloud NAC service, thousands of locations, right? It's probably one of the largest NAC deployments ever, right? Some of the largest grocery chains in the world are adopting access assurance. Large ITSM companies, security companies, identity providers are now leveraging access assurance as their NAC product. Now we are seeing tremendous trend in universities because for them, number one problem is to actually solve the onboarding for their students, especially as you're migrating from the legacy PPMS CHAP and usernames and passwords to certificates. How do you make this process simple and easy, not just for your students as bring your own device, but also for all of your staff devices that is MDM managed. So really, in the past 2 years, we've seen a tremendous interest and a tremendous adoption of the technology. Now, I will actually switch to a demo. And we will spend a couple of minutes. Escape, 1 second. Escape. About that? Okay, fantastic. So when we look at access assurance, so for those of you who have never seen a MIST dashboard, this is the MIST dashboard. Okay, now in the organizational view, what you'll see is really access assurance as your NAC component is yet another module in the dashboard, along with the entire full stack, which is wireless, wired, SD-WAN. NAC is in the same place. So in there, first, obviously, you will do all of your integrations with identity providers, with UEM, CDRs, etc. You'll configure or import all of your PKI. So if you're doing bring your own CA, we will support that. If you want to leverage the MIST native PKI that we have in the cloud, you can do that as well. But most importantly, where all things are happening from a NAC policy perspective is really this auth policy page. So what's so key about that, right? So this all comes back to the philosophy of making NAC accessible and simple to use, right? So we want to reduce the learning curve for IT admins when they're trying to manage their policies and to apply rules for different types of devices. So you have a list of rules that are evaluated from top to bottom. On the left-hand side of the rule, you're looking at different match criteria. And on the right-hand side of the rule, you're applying actions, so VLAN, role, session timeouts, et cetera, et cetera. So let's look at, I don't know, a couple of examples. For example, let's look at rule number 2, the easiest one. So if we see this is a wireless client, and if the wireless client is using certificates to authenticate, and we trust them, and if this wireless client is compliant from an MDM point of view, right, again, with all our integrations, then the rule will match. You will move over to the right-hand side of the rule. You're applying an action. In this case, this is a VLAN. You can also send a role that will translate a policy, and then, how often do you want to re-authenticate that connection? But, okay, so what about some of the IoT scenarios where you want to drop your wired unmanaged devices, like printers and phones, et cetera, into different network segments. So in this case, let's say I don't want to scroll through the entire list of rules. I just want to look at my policies for a specific site, right? So I have a site in Cupertino where I have my IoT devices, so I'm just going to filter all my policies for Cupertino. And in this case, I have a couple of rules for my printers. In my case, I'm using Lexmark printers. I have surveillance cameras from Axis, and I got some voice phones over there. So I just created 3 rules, right? The way you create policies, again, you're not going to leave this place at all. Right? So if you've ever worked with any other NAC solution before, you will appreciate the simplicity, but at the same time, we're not losing the granularity when it comes to your policy configuration. So you can match on any of the certificate attributes, you can match on any of the directory or IDP information that we get, MDM information that we are working with, or any of the device fingerprints that you can leverage in the policies. And all you want to do is just select them as a label from the left-hand side of the rule, and then apply action on the right-hand side. Now, this is all just config, right? So what about the visibility? That's another thing. Let me look at the entire org. That's another thing that's actually super important. So let's say you have hundreds of locations, and you have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or even millions of clients. How do you know who is actually having a problem? How do you know how many of them you have? How do you know how many printers you got on your network? How many devices that are Intune managed that are non-compliant maybe, right? So this is what the NAC clients page is all about, where we aggregate all of your unique clients. We'll tell you where they are, where they're connected, where we have seen them for the last time, which policy got assigned, what is the fingerprint, what is all the contextual information we were able to extract during the authentication. So for instance, we can say, oh, actually, show me all of the devices that have been classified as a printer. Boom. Right, we have 2 printers in 2 different switches. One is Lexmark, one is Canon. Or maybe show me a device that's, or devices that are Jamf managed. So here you go, you have a MacBook that is M2 Air that is actually also marked as non-compliant from a Jamf perspective. But what's important is once we drill down, and when we want to look at the end user experience on the network, when we look at this particular client, at this particular user, we're not only looking at it from a NAC perspective, we're not only looking at it from a Wi-Fi perspective, it's all in one place, right? We are capturing all of these connection states for every client, for every user, for every device. From a NAC perspective, from a Wi-Fi perspective, from a wired perspective. So in this case, things are great. So client is doing EPTLS authentication. It trusts the server cert. It presents the client certificate. So you see all the metadata there. We do the IDP lookup. In this case, client is part of actually over 100 groups in Entra, so you can pull the entire list. Client is also managed by the MDM, and in this case it's Jamf, and Jamf is actually telling us this device is not compliant. But we're still evaluating the policy, and we're saying, actually this client hit this particular rule, right? But what's important is, at this point, NAC is finished, right? NAC has assigned a policy, but now we start seeing the data that's coming from the network, right? It's associated to the AP. The client obtained an IP address through the HCP. It ARPed. It resolved DNS. So we can track the entire user experience from the point it starts authenticating to the point that it can pass traffic left and right. So if at any point there is a problem, we know exactly where the problem is and what the problem is, right? So if you look at this, the types of the client events that we are gathering, specifically, let's focus on the NAC related. So many things can go wrong in the NAC deployment. And in some cases, they're not even NAC related, right? In some cases, this is your entire MDM suite with the PKI, and sometimes you're pushing their own configuration through MDM, and half of your clients are not able to connect. We can actually track that and tell you exactly where the problem is, right? You push the wrong server sort for validation. Now, boom, your clients are failing to connect. So this is where this visibility becomes extremely important when you're, when you're looking at all of your day 2 operations. So let's look at the example where a client is failing. So I'm just going to show or look for clients that have been denied. So in this case, we see this is a wireless client doing EIP-TLS. Let's look at why it's failing. And in this scenario, the client is failing, and we see it actually fails at the very first step. So the client doesn't trust the service certificate that NAC presents. There you go, you have the event. It actually tells you what the problem is and how to fix. And on top of that, AP will also send you a dynamic pickup showing the entire transaction that happened and why the AP rejected the connection. So again, everything is available from one place. I will show one more thing before I hand over to Samuel, which is where we will also look at the architectural advantages of the access assurance, of course. So we will talk about how do you enforce the authentication on, say, a wireless SSID, or maybe in a switch template on all of your switch ports. In a traditional Radius world, you would configure each and every Radius server in order. You need to deploy them in clusters. You need to think about that high availability and resiliency. And the moment you go into large multi-geo deployments, you need to think about this even more, because you need to have clusters in EMEA, you need to have clusters in North America, you need to have clusters in APAC. You need to tell the APs to look at the right cluster. What are you going to do with missed access assurance? All you have to say is your authentication server is missed off. That's it. With that drop down, if you have APs in North America, let's say on the east side, they will be automatically redirected to the east pod that we have deployed. If they are on the West Coast, they will be automatically redirected to the West Coast pod that we have deployed. If they are in Europe, they will terminate somewhere in Frankfurt or Paris. That's all automatic, right? And the only thing you will do from the configuration point of view is just select this simple drop-down. That's the power of the architecture, when it comes to the deployment. It will save you literally months of work when it comes to real-life deployments. With that, I think I have one more slide, and I will hand over to Samuel. And this is really just an overview of the offering from a subscription point of view. The access assurance comes as a service. It is a subscription based on the number of concurrently active client connections, right? And we have multiple tiers of the subscriptions. Mainly, it's a standard tab or an advanced. So with standard, you will get support for all of the authentication methods, support for third-party devices, authenticating via missed edge, MPSK onboarding, IDP integrations. With advanced, you will get everything what's in standard, plus MDM EDR integrations, profiling, and certificate onboarding, and PKI. And there is a small add-on, which is a site survivability, where for mission-critical deployments, where you're afraid that you will lose your internet connectivity to the cloud. There is a caching service that's available in this edge to keep the site running, even if the cloud connectivity is down. Right. So, with that, Samuel, over to you.
Oh, you have it here. Thank you very much. Well, this was pretty impressive. I had seen access assurance, but every time I see Slava go over it, I'm like appreciating more and more the care with how it was developed. Now let's switch to Central NAC. Central NAC is actually a little bit older than access assurance in the sense that it comes from Cloud Auth, it comes from Central Guest or Cloud Guest. And in fact, we've had some of the largest guest networks in the world. We had the whole city of Mexico with more than 25,000 access points doing guest authentications against our solution, doing MAC caching. So that was like billions of authentications per day. So this is one of the advantages of the cloud, right? That you just get a service, and it's Aruba's problem or HPE Networking's problem to just scale it up, right? So Cloud Auth or Cloud Guest first, eventually it evolves into Cloud Auth. Now that with New Central or with Central, we're calling it Central NAC. Why is it Central NAC and not Cloud Auth? Because what was a more SMB focused service now is a NAC service. Now is a simpler NAC than ClearPass, easier to adopt. It has the benefit of being built inside the cloud, but it is actually pretty feature rich. You can bring authentications from other NAT devices. Doesn't need to be an Aruba device. It can be a Cisco switch. It can be a Comware switch, or I don't know, any other AP that you can think of, a Ruckus AP. You can, of course, use MPSK. You can use AirPass. I don't know. AirPass in Europe is not popular because for a number of years, it's been primarily for US carriers. Starting in January, we're going to be bringing open roaming into AirPass. So you will be able to, you'll have it available, not just for your SIM providers, your carriers, but also you'll be able to authenticate with your Apple ID or with your Google ID or your Samsung ID, whatever it is. So think about that for a guest service. You can even become an identity provider if you're an organization that is large enough, right? Of course, you can build more complex policies. You'll see that, and definitely a lot more than in Cloud Auth, and pretty much handle 80% of what you were doing in ClearPass was just built into the platform, right? So let's look at it. Okay, so how did I get here? Just from the menu in Central, I came to Central NAC. I'm going to span it out 7 days because the lab is in California. In the last 3 hours, well, things have been sleeping. And you see like this, like high-level monitoring, whatever. But you're going to very soon see that we're going to get that device, that access troubleshooting, kind of similar to what Slava was showing. I'm going to be able to see what Matthew is doing and see that he's doing EAP-TLS and connecting to this AP, and it's classified as a MacBook, and it's matching on this policy, and I can see all the events, like when the authentication started, when the session started, all that stuff. I can also go and see similar things, for example, for cameras, for anything that I may have. See here, an interesting thing, this classification, you see that it says there tags, and it's tagged as IoT. That is part of the AI ML that Central is doing. It is going to be classifying the device as IoT. It's going to be classifying maybe as a device as doing having a potentially anomalous behavior. It'll allow me to create rules to say, for example, determine if this device is of the type, I don't know, those iPads that are in the meeting rooms that always go to the same application, that always go, that are always in the same location. That iPad doesn't really behave like any other iPad. So maybe we want to treat it differently, right? So those tags here are going to be for behavioral analytics, right? But again, this is just built into the system. I don't need to do anything to get the profiling. I don't need to do a DHCP relay, or I don't need to like do some Nmap scans or anything like that. It is just receiving all the telemetry from Central, from your devices into Central, and using that to classify, right? Of course, when it comes to the policies and how these authorization policies look like, well, they have to look kind of similar to ClearPass, right? It is, after all, built by the same team. So if we look at this MPSK policy, this is like at the beginning, we're just going to do the service. Remember, all those of you who raised your hands when we asked who had ClearPass here, this is going to be your service. Like, what condition does it match to get treated by this policy, right? And I can build very rich conditions. I can group them. So it's still, we're trying to make it simple, but we know that sometimes things require a little bit more depth, right? Once you go into the service, then I'm going to be like, okay, if any client is doing an abnormal data download, that's one of those tags that Central gives you. That's, hey, your camera is all of a sudden downloading data from, I don't know, North Korea. Well, that's not good, right? So if anything is doing this anomal data download, I'm going to put it in a restricted access, or I could flat out deny it. But this restricted access is probably better because I'm going to be able to put that device in a quarantine state, inform the user, et cetera, right? Of course, once again, I can keep adding conditions and add and or, and I can group the conditions and make them very rich. I think one of the very interesting things is in the conditions, I can use these client tags, and in the client tags, there's these IoT generated ones, AI generated ones, like a normal download, upload. There's like whatever we get from the different partners, Intune or Defender or Ivanti or whoever it is, it's classified as an ML-IoT device. It's one of those things that is clearly not owned by, or not a handheld device, right? I'm going to use that to give it a user role, to give it a, I mean, you could use VLANs. We're going to keep adding more attributes there, but if it's an Aruba device, you want a user role, right? Everyone here knows about user roles? We're all good there, right? Even those that are more Juniper familiar, you're good with the user roles. Because that's the next thing we're going to do. We have all these conditions to get to a user role. The user role is what you will do in the network, right? So in New Central, the way we're configuring and the way we're using roles and roles in our policies is going to be very different. For the last 20 plus years, you would go create your role and put all your policies inside the role. That's fantastic. Like, I knew exactly what this device would do. As you want to expand it broader, and if you want to build a global policy, it becomes a little it becomes a little hard to keep track of this role, that role. What happens if this talks to that? So in what is no longer called New Central, we have everything in a single page. So a collection of roles here, in this case, Zero Trust Things, user, faculty, student, teacher, sending UDP 68, that is, I don't want to allow that. That client is trying to become a DHCP server, so I deny it. But then those same users, I'm going to let them pick up an IP address via DHCP. I'm going to let them do DNS, of course. Let me just exit here. I'm going to let them do DNS. Of course, I will have some other policies, and maybe I want to allow certain applications that are using Quick, I don't know, YouTube, Netflix, whatever. I want those applications to use Quick, but I don't want all applications to use Quick because a lot of Quick is kind of hard to identify, so it's going to be difficult to do the web content filtering policies. So I'll just block the random Quick because it's generally used by evasive protocols. So I'll block Quick. I'll block DNS over HTTPS, and then I'll do all my policies. And I'll do my application-based policies, and I'll also do the role-based policies. I'll say, okay, teacher can talk to things, or faculty, or a user in faculty can talk to a user in things, right? In a one page, all the policies. You see here how I'm assigning these policies to a mobility gateway. I could assign these policies. Here to a gateway, a bridge, an AP, a switch. Of course, a switch does not have the same enforcement capabilities that we would have in a gateway, or an AP doesn't have the same enforcement capabilities, but you get the sense, right? It's one place to manage all policies. If I want to do something as simple as from this user type to this user type, or from this role to that role, allow or deny, everything in one place, right? Why is this important? Because as we get more and more things into the network, we want to be able to narrow down whatever these things can do, right? So I'm going to flip back. I was showing like a couple of lab environments. This is not a lab environment. This is just my home network. I would have shown everything here, but there's nobody home. So it would have been kind of boring. There's just stuff. And there's Alexa. There's like some sound bar. There's a smart plug. There's my Nintendo Switch. All of these devices are just, because they are in the network, they get automatically classified. And because they're in the network and they're being observed, Central is going to recommend policies on how those devices should work, right? If I have, for example, a user role for my printers, and it's observing that my printer always does the same thing, it'll tell me, hey, build this policy. If I show that my Nintendo Switch always goes to Nintendo.com and Nintendo.net, it'll tell me, hey, put the Nintendo in that policy, right? You can see it's part of these IoT insights. You see IoT policy optimization available. You see for different roles, different types of devices, it's going to try and tell me what it has to do. So this is in the IoT home. I have my Ring device. It is going to a couple of websites, and it's going to my DNS server. That's all I need to allow to that user role, right? Very simple. That policy, of course, it needs to get DHCP, it needs DNS, but apart from that, yeah, DNS to this IP address. This is my, in this case, 88888. And then it's going to go to a couple of additional websites, and that's it, right? If that device gets compromised and tries to do something weird, it's going to be blocked. Make sense? So it was kind of rushed, but I am already out of time, and I'm going to be kicked out of the room. So I need to wrap it up. How you get this? If you have an AP or a switch or a gateway in Central, you get access to Central NAC with the basic functionality. For small medium business, this is most likely going to be fine. If you are a ClearPass customer trying to make it a little bit easier on yourself and have it as part of Central, you need to go to the NAC license, the Central NAC license. That one is, of course, gonna expose all the capabilities that I was showing you. It'll let you come in from a third-party device. It'll let you use these advanced tags. It'll let you do these complex policies, etc. So in other words, all of you who raise your hands, you need the one on the right. The others, we'll see. Okay? Any questions? Yes? So the question is there any support for proxying to a radius server? I don't understand the question.
In that case, we're university with proxy to the edge.
Okay. Proxy to Eduroam. That is something that in Central NAC we don't have it yet. It's coming next year. We don't have it yet. In Access Assurance, Slava was telling me a couple of days ago that we actually use the mist edge to do that proxying, right? So in Access Assurance you have it today. In Central NAC it's going to come in maybe a few months. I hope that we have it by the summer when all the universities are going to be looking at potential changes. Any other question? These are just housekeeping slides. No more questions. Visit our community. If you liked the session, let us know. If you didn't like the session, also let us know. What was your question?
I just want to ask if there is tunnel here in Central.
Can you say it again, please?
Is there any support for tier?
Eep Teep?
Tier, tunnel tier.
Tunnel Teep is supported, yes.
In Central?
I believe so, yeah. I may, let me check. If it isn't, it's coming very soon. Okay. Thank you very much.